Good evening. Today is Tuesday, August 9th, and the board meeting was called to order at 5:15 p.m. today, with the board going directly into executive session under ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions, and ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. It is now 6:03 p.m., and we are reconvening our meeting with the public session, which is a regular business meeting. All board directors are in attendance, and we welcome one of our new student advisors, Isaac McDonald. Our other student advisor is absent this evening. And now we'll go to agenda item 3A, the diverse welcome message. And I've asked First Vice Chair Hinojos Presi to read it tonight.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Welcome y bienvenidos to the Salem-Keizer School Board meeting. At all times, whether we're meeting in person or virtual, we strive to be inclusive, respectful, and welcoming to our students, staff, educators, administrators, board members, and all community members. We welcome people of all genders, people of African descent, Black, African American, Asian descent, Arab descent, European descent, those who identify as Hispanic, Latinx, people indigenous to this land, and people of mixed and multiple descents. Languages spoken in our communities are welcome: Spanish, English, indigenous language, sign language, Chuukese, Somali, Russian, Chinese, Vietnamese, and many, many more. People with disabilities, visible or invisible, people of all religions, believers in all faiths or creeds, gay, lesbian, bisexual, heterosexual, pansexual, transgender, queer, two-spirit, or others for whom none of the labels fit. Your families, genetic and otherwise, our veterans who proudly served and are currently serving our country, our elders, those here in this room, in our lives, and those who have passed away. People impacted and displaced by wars and other violent conflicts. Finally, we'd like to welcome the ancestors who lived in this land where we live and work. Welcome the spirits of the Santiam, Kalapuya, Siletz, and Grand Ronde, the natives who lived in this area before European settlers came. Welcome y bienvenidos.
Thank you. And now we'll move to 3B, the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I don't believe there are any agenda modifications, and so now we'll move to swear in one of our student advisors, Isaac McDonald. If you could stand for me, Isaac. Okay. And raise your right hand and repeat after me. Oh yeah, you have to hold your button as well as you. Oh, yep, there you go. I know. There we go. Maybe Osvaldo could give you an assist with the button. It's a lot of tasks at once. Okay. There you go. You got this. There you go. I, Isaac McDonald.
I, Isaac McDonald.
As a student of Salem-Keizer Public Schools.
As a student of Salem-Keizer Public Schools.
And as an appointed student advisor.
And as an appointed student advisor.
To the school board.
To the school board.
Do hereby affirm.
Do hereby affirm.
My commitment to represent.
My commitment to represent.
All students.
All students.
And bring the voice of all students.
And bring the voice of all students.
To the school board.
To the school board.
Great, congratulations. All right, we are moving on to 4A on our agenda, which are our spotlights. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Perry.
All right, and I believe our spotlights are online tonight. So our first spotlight is going to be presented by Stephanie Wetzel, our Director of Early Childhood Education, and she's going to present our Community Partner of the Month. Welcome, Stephanie. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Carson Cottingham, board members, and Superintendent Perry. I'm here tonight to honor Emily Marshall. Unfortunately, Emily could not be here this evening. Emily is a speech and language pathologist with Willamette ESD who supports our Salem-Keizer early childhood students and families. Emily works to creatively meet student needs. This has included purchasing appropriate food items for a student with sensory needs, advocating for resources for students with limited language, and supporting teachers with implementing accommodations. During the 21-22 school year, Emily shared the idea for creating communication boards on our early childhood playgrounds. She shared resources and ideas on how this could support all students. With this advocacy, we now have installed communication boards on 4 of our Salem-Keizer Early Childhood Center playgrounds. These boards make our playgrounds more inclusive and will allow all students to be able to ask what they want and be able to express themselves with their peers. This tool will help ensure that all students have equal access, regardless of any challenges they may face. Thank you, Emily, for your contributions. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, our next spotlight is going to be presented by Jennifer Neitzel, who is the principal at Calapooya Elementary School. And Jennifer has also led our summer learning at the elementary level, also lots of packets that we've gotten out to schools. So I know we're here to highlight a Community Partner of the Month, but I thought it would be a great time to just highlight you a little bit too. Your leadership this summer has really made a difference for our kids, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. It has been great to have so many students have opportunities this summer and to try to help get caught up. So good evening, Chair Carson Cottingham, board members, and Superintendent Perry. Tonight, I'm joined by Susafina Alfemui and Crystal Perkins, both with Intel. I don't know if they can turn their camera on.
Hey.
Intel organized several community partners to put together bags of hope for students in our summer enrichment programs. They actually delivered over 1,500 bags for our elementary school students who are attending school this summer. Each bag had several items, including a STEM activity for the students to complete, and also were personalized with a handwritten positive message. I know Intel and the other community partners are busy, but they took time out of their schedule to put together these bags of hope for our students, making them all feel special and letting them know that the whole community is here to support them. Thank you again to Susie, Crystal, Intel, and our other community partners for providing these bags of hope. Our students are grateful for your kindness and support.
Thank you, Jen, for recognizing us. Susie's on the line with me here. She can't turn on her camera because she's traveling right now, but on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for putting us in one of your spotlights, and we're so grateful to be able to contribute to this wonderful community.
All right, and our last spotlight is a program spotlight tonight, and Melissa Glover, our Director of Student Services, will be providing our program spotlight tonight. Hi, Melissa, and no surprise that you're going to be highlighting our unified summer programs.
Every chance we get. I'll go ahead and ask my friends on the line to turn on their cameras. Good evening, Chair Carson Cottingham, board members, and Superintendent Perry. It is a pleasure to be here with you tonight alongside our Unified Champion School Summer Program leaders. We have with us Noah Milkey, who's our Community Resource Specialist for Special Education. Heather Bennett is one of our teachers at Walker Middle School. Amanda Burke is a District Instructional Mentor for Special Education, and Callie Owings is the coordinator that oversees our Unified Champion programs K-12. Jen LaBarth could not be here tonight, but I cannot not mention her. She is our administrative support that behind the scenes has made this amazing summer program happen this year. So this summer, we were able to offer an elementary, middle, and high school unified summer program, totaling more than 300 students. This opportunity brings together students with and without disabilities to engage in fun summer activities together, while at the same time creating the space for authentic friendships to form between students who may not often have that opportunity. The impact has been huge on our students with and without disabilities, as well as on our staff and our families. This has created an opportunity to teach students about disability and that differences should be celebrated and not separated. Our staff have been instrumental in making this possible, and it's been great to see them so excited to bring unified programs back to their schools. Many parents have commented on how excited their children are about attending and how welcomed and included they feel with their peers. Once you experience Unified, you always want more. This experience has allowed our district staff, students, families, and community to see that students can and should be included with their peers. Unified is now in all of our high schools, in 9 of our 11 middle schools, and in 5 elementary schools. Our hope is that in the next 3 years, we will have Unified Champion programs in every Salem-Keizer school. I really want to thank everyone that has and continued to support our Unified program and look forward to seeing what our staff and students accomplish in the future. Thanks for all the work that you guys do. It's been a long summer and you've not had a break, but it has been so fun getting all of the kids' stories every day about all the fun things that have been going on. And I really want to know where you got the Salem-Keizer Unified Champion Schools background, because I feel a little left out right now. So thank you, all of you.
I had the same thought about the unified background. And just one quick question. Are there any opportunities to visit still this summer? Do we have a couple more weeks left? Oh, they're gone. Never mind. I'll get that out to you. Oh, yeah. Anyway, let's give a big round of applause for our unified program.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is number 5, reports and presentations, with A being the superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Perry.
All right, and I have a technical question because Dr. Udosanata needs to pull down the PowerPoint. Can you start the video, or does he need to do that first, Aaron? Okay, all right, so we're going to start with the video. I just wanted to highlight a few things from summer. Better to hear it from others and not just from me.
To 13 babies at a time that can swim on their own at birth.
That's crazy.
Silla.
Escríbelo.
Markers up.
Okay. The last word is man. What word?
Man.
The man walked to the store. What word?
Man.
Think about the sounds. Right. Man.
Oh.
So if you can read lead, you can read
Lead. Mama can pick up that hug.
It's a long use.
Huge rock. Blink. The store.
Okay, you ready? Blend.
Can.
Let's keep going.
I got cat.
climbing the ladder? Sat.
Now, if it doesn't light up the first time, that's okay, because that means we probably have our battery backwards, all right?
And while they're queuing up the next video, just a couple comments. One is what you're seeing is that foundational reading that we know is so important through our ECRI foundational reading skills curriculum. That is some of the similar curriculum that you'll see in classrooms and primary classrooms during the school year, but this summer was meant to boost some of those early learning skills, learning math and early math skills as well. And notice we got 41 schools represented, about 1,100 kids that showed up for elementary summer enrichment with some sprinkled in of some academic learning. So I thought it was really important for people to really see the teaching that's happening in classrooms. All right, next video, Erin. Or what?
Math Bridge is an enrichment program for 7th and 8th graders.
Some people, when they hear math camp, they think just math, but we play a lot of games, which is really fun. Mr. Ochoa has found a great way to split it up and make it fun and challenging at the same time. You're in a smaller group, so you can ask more questions and you get more opportunities to learn.
The highlight of it is you get to learn and you get to problem solve without the pressure of grades.
I was worried to come here as well, but then when I actually showed up, it was like really fun. It's really easy for me now.
That summer math bridge is in our middle schools. We're trying to give a boost in math so they can jumpstart their learning when they get into school in a few weeks. And then Dr. Odosanata, how are you feeling about that presentation? It's ready, awesome. All right, so a couple other highlights I just wanted to give. First of all, in the budget process, remember you approved dollars to go towards curriculum adoption. And so I'm looking here. I did just jinx them. No pressure. No one wants to be the person that has to run the slides. And Dr. Udosanata volunteers every time when no one else wants to. I know. Actually, we'll draw little popsicle sticks. Oh, guess what, Ethan? It's your turn tonight. It's all good. Thank you for doing it. All right. So a couple things. So one is, you did make a commitment to curriculum adoptions this year through your investment in the budget. So we are on for adopting elementary health curriculum, and that's important because it's been decades old. So I'm drawing it out here, Barry. You're doing great. I'm the encourager. Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Are you ready? Take three. Awesome. Okay. So go ahead and go on to the next slide. The way we're organizing for the elementary health adoption is we do have a steering committee. And I'm sorry, you're good. It's me. Health education provides us students with knowledge and skills necessary to develop health literacy. Comprehensive sex education is just one small part of elementary health and the standards. But we need them to be able to access valid information, resources, and services in order to develop, maintain, and promote healthy behaviors. So we are long overdue for an elementary health adoption, and materials are outdated. In 2015, the Oregon legislature passed Senate Bill 856, which was Aaron's law, which does require schools to provide a minimum number of 4 instructional sessions on sexual abuse prevention, K-12. Subsequently, the Oregon Board of Education passed changes to Administrative Rule 581-022-1440, Human Sexuality Education, which requires that each school teach comprehensive, age-appropriate, medically accurate information. And parents can always choose to opt out of any of the health curriculum, and we give notice to parents at the time of teaching of lessons. And then in 2016, the Oregon Health Standards and Performance Indicators were updated to reflect these changes. All right, Director Hyan, question.
Thank you. So we have not purchased anything yet, correct?
Correct.
And is the community and/or the board going to be involved in that purchase and be able to review it?
Yeah, let me give you one more slide. That was a great entry point, Director Hyan.
Just for you, I did that.
Thank you. All right, so how we're organizing the work is we have a steering committee. It's selected by the Director of Elementary Curriculum Instruction. Director Guzman-Ortiz has offered to be a board liaison on the steering committee. And what they'll do is vet the curriculum against the criteria established by ODE. So that's their job and what our district needs. What we know is that there isn't any one curriculum that will meet all the standards, but that will be the job of the committee. Then we'll have school representatives, and then we'll do some piloting at schools on some of the lessons to see what is a curriculum like so teachers can give input into the process. So our Director of Elementary Instruction will be led by that. At the end of this time, then it comes before public viewing and the board, and that comes next in the process. All right, Director Bethel.
So I appreciate the concept of piloting. How are parents in those schools going to know that it exists? How can they review it, and how can they opt out of it?
Yep. And I'm going to see if Assistant Superintendent Cobb, she's been overseeing this project with us.
We will create communication for parents. We will send communication to parents in the schools that will be piloting, and we will also have opportunities for parents to come and see the lessons, see the materials, and actually give us some feedback around the lessons that we'll be using.
So a follow-up question to that is, we've heard extensively in my 3 years on the school board that parents don't always, one, feel comfortable coming to the school to do that thorough review for whatever their reasons are, and two, they don't always have access. So how are we going to provide access outside of them having to sit supervised by a staff person to go through that? I know before there was copyright issues to where we couldn't provide the curriculum and copies out, but is there an opportunity for you to put it online and provide them a login so that way it can be monitored for download or whatnot, but they can still access it?
We can ask definitely the company for some permissions of online viewing. Right now, that is not allowed because of copyright issues, but we can definitely ask that question of the provider.
And to have maybe even some, not just come in and view the materials, but like some parent nights to say, here's what's in, because it is hard to just sit and view all the materials. So we'll watch that, and we're just trying to take it as a kind of slow process to have good engagement along the way. All right, so switching gears. Keep in mind, I've reminded about this a couple times, that we're in the middle of our needs assessment, and we have begun a number of engagement sessions. The way the engagement sessions work is we present some data, have some conversation, we talk about hopes and dreams, and then we have people that are there give us information on kind of strengths and opportunities. And we've had a few board members attend those. The only thing I'm going to show you for the first months of our engagement is just the word clouds, because we're taking all the feedback, and then the Data Center, Research Center at Willamette ESD will help us share themes. So I don't want to make it look like I'm sharing themes ahead of them as the researchers doing their work. So the first word cloud is from our Native Indigenous families, and when we ask the question, what are your hopes and dreams for our students in Salem-Keizer, this is how they answered the question. So I'm just trying to help people see some themes around that. The next one was our child care providers and early learning. And you'll notice in the center of that was safety for our learning providers. Also at this session, they shared with us that we really had missed getting our home providers in, so they're going to help us do another engagement session to bring in our home providers as well. So every session we will do something, and then we'll say, is there a different way to do more outreach within the group? Isaac and Raylyn have some great ideas of how to engage students too, so we had a good talk about that. The next group we met with were our faith leaders, and the question was, again, what are your hopes and dreams for our students in Salem-Keizer? And you can see how they answered in a lot of similar ways to other groups. And this was a larger group, so that's part of the reason you see more words on this one. And then finally, I think the last one is we met with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. One of the things we appreciate doing with our tribes and are also required to do is that government-to-government tribal consultation. So we went out to the tribe. Chair Carson Cottingham and Director Avila were with us, and we did what was considered a tribal consultation with the Grand Ronde tribe, and this is the words they came up with in answering the same question. We'll do a similar consultation with Siletz, and then this is only the first of about 25 other engagement sessions. And every time I'll try to get board members there. Director Sean DeGeary has agreed to kind of lead and make sure that he's there, and we have others there as well. And I think it was a good conversation and experience to really be listeners after we presented some data. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then just very quickly, I just want to do a quick flyover of our summer programs. We have, this was our numbers of our next round of summer programs. So you can see the numbers of kids impacted. And like our high school programming, there is credit recovery, there is CTE enrichment, there is engagement. Our unified programming, 360 students participating. When we say it's summer and school's not in session, school's really in session for us in Salem-Keizer. And a huge shout out to our teams that have been leading the summer learning work, especially our transportation department, because we're transporting kids to school every day at a time when we've already got a bit of a fatigue system, but they're continuing to show up every day. So then I just have some pictures. You can see the smiles on our unified programs. Here's our unified elementary programs, and I think the elementary might have another week or so if you wanted to visit. And we get comments from both our students with disabilities and their parents and our partner students who are participating, as it's just a great experience for all of them. And parents and kids are just thrilled. We've done fast break basketball. We want to be sure that our middle school kids in the neighborhoods at Houck and Stevens have some great activities. So we've had fast break basketball summer programs going a couple nights a week, except when it was too hot in those schools. And we've served, I think, 40 to 50 kids a night sometimes in those schools, just showing up to play basketball. We've got some great role models there for them and their learning skills, but also having fun. This is a picture of our summer enrichment. You saw some of that in the video. And then summer graduation was last week, and I think Chair Carson Cottingham, you were there. No, sorry. Director Guzman Ortiz, second vice chair, was there to celebrate our kids going across the stage. We are really intentional about this celebration because these are kids who were close to graduating but didn't get to walk in the regular ceremony because they weren't finished. And we believe so strongly in getting kids their diploma that we want to celebrate them and their families. So caps and gowns, principals are there. You see Principal Queering from McKay handing out, and every high school is represented as kids are walking across the stage. And then finally, go ahead, yes.
Thank you. So in the board packet, there's a summer graduation document. I'm not really clear on the data. It looks to me like it says McKay High School had 514 total participants, but only 12 graduated. Is that correct? That seems like McNary had 473 kids and at the end across the stage, but only 7 made it.
Oh, I think the numbers are the whole class,
Okay.
and I'm going to make sure I'm right here. And then the kids that they mentioned, the 7, are the ones that participate in summer graduation. So it wasn't portrayed the clearest there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Thank
was
you.
like, I was at graduation in McNary, and I felt like
There was that many there. Yeah, there was that many there. So any of those kids that are now counted in their graduation that didn't walk across the stage at McNary walked across the stage if they wanted to last Thursday night. To bring that number up. Yep. Thank you for that clarification. And then just a reminder, we are not that far off from back to school. We'll start our back to school news. We've got our back to school backgrounds if you want one. I think Director McDaniels has sent them on to you. But we just wanted to highlight a number of school supply drop-off places. We do have kids and families who need school supplies. So you can see there's places throughout the community. Salem Community Market. Lucis has a number of drop-off places. And then here's some other back to school. Yeah. The Boys and Girls Club, it has their backpack giveaway, drive-through event, walk-ups also are welcome Saturday, August 13th at 1 p.m. The Assistance League and Operation Backpack, the Micronesian Islander community, and Willamette Dental are all gearing up for back to school. So just really a huge shout out to our partners who are out really prepping for back to school and making sure we have supplies and backpacks and clothing for kids in need. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to the next agenda item, and Chair Carson Cottingham is going to talk about superintendent search update.
Thank you, Superintendent Perry. So just a few quick bullets here on where we are with the superintendent search. We sent out an intermediate request for proposals at the end of July. It was sent to 8 search firms who traditionally do this type of recruitment work. And then we've asked that they provide proposals back if they're interested by August 15th. And then we will be doing public interviewing of the search firms on Tuesday, August 23rd, and Wednesday, August 24th, tentatively. If we get through all of the interviews in that first evening, or is that when the lunch one, or evening? Evening. So all of them will be evening. And then the board all collectively will select a search firm in a public session. And then our goal is, as we mentioned, to move as quickly as possible to get that contract finalized by September 1 so we can get the work underway. So is there anything else to add on the superintendent search update?
Other than the work sessions will be virtual, and that will allow, first of all, us to get Miller Elementary ready for the start of school, and for any search firm that's out of town, they'll all be able to just Zoom in. So the chair and board leadership decided to do those virtually.
Thank you. I did want to note for the record that Student Advisor Brennan has arrived, and so welcome. We're now going to move on to agenda item 6, public comment. So we have selected speakers at random. We have public comment both in person, and we have one caller signed up who will come through the boards here via Zoom. We have allotted 45 minutes for public comment. Each caller has 3 minutes. Electronic mechanisms are used for translation, so an additional 3 minutes for translation is no longer necessary. So as a reminder, if you've joined by Zoom, you can select the language of your preference at the bottom. And if you have one of these listening devices, channel 1 Channel 2 is Spanish, and Channel 3 is English. The wizard behind the curtain. Okay, so the timer then will be up on the boards. It'll count down from 3 minutes. At 30 seconds, it turns from green to yellow. At 1 second, it turns red and plays a short bell to signal time is up. Please be mindful of your pace for all of our interpreters. Also, as a reminder, all board members receive the written comment, which will be posted to the website. And for those people we aren't able to get to tonight, there are a significant number of people signed up, and so we are not going to be able to get to everyone who has signed up to speak in person tonight. Please send your comments to the email for the entire school board so that we can read those. And let's see, is there anything else I'm forgetting? Oh, we're asking that just one person come up to the table at a time. With signs, just be careful if people are trying to get in and out of rows. Don't block any access to getting up here to test or to provide public comment. And then just as a reminder of the policies we passed, I don't know how many months ago now, we do want to make sure all of our work done here is with care and respect. And people will be subject to immediate removal from a meeting space or district property if you are engaged in any of the following behaviors: fighting or threatening behavior, harassment, conduct that is disruptive to the functioning of district meetings, events, or business, obviously damaging district property, abusive, threatening, vulgar, or hate speech, including speech articulated on signs and clothing which violate the district's harassment or every student belongs policy, and possessing a dangerous or deadly weapon pursuant to administrative policy, visitors to schools and campuses. So just a reminder of those policies, and we are looking forward to hearing from a whole bunch of you tonight. So I'm going to ask that Jordan pull up the first and only caller for the evening.
Yes, our caller tonight is Julissa. Julissa, are you able to unmute and begin?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Julissa Rodriguez, and I'm an educator in the district. My first comment is urging the school board to vote in favor of prohibiting firearms and concealed weapons on campus or our campuses. Going on to my second comment is on the safe and welcoming policy that we have for our students. Like it was just said in the rules, I'd like to remind the board the importance of investing in, our students' mental health and the need for counselors. We need counselors, therapists, and psychiatrists for our students to have access to, as those are very limited. Even with private insurance, a lot of our students are on the state health insurance. It's very, very limited access to get to those services. We also need activities for their positive mental health where they can engage in and that improve their mental being. Studies have suggested that getting out into nature helps a lot with mental health. Unfortunately, recently when a group of students attempted to engage in botany, they were harassed by our security guards from the school district that we spend tons and tons of money on. So I don't see how we could have a resolution that says safe and welcoming schools for our students when they aren't being welcomed on these campuses when they're trying to engage in beautifying our stuff. And the image that I saw of the security guard looking over these students was very reminiscent of stuff we've seen in movies of slave owners, children, the sons on the horse looking down at the people they've enslaved, supervising as they work. And so as a teacher, that was very infuriating to me because in every single teacher training that we have in the district, we are taught to have our students take control of their own learning and be the drivers of their learning. So these students were trying to engage in that, and they were being harassed with that. So if we're trying to create lifelong learners, that experience that they had to go through was a very negative experience and opposite of what we teach them in our classrooms. going on, I'd like the board to remember to please stop any homophobic, transphobic, racist, sexist, classist, any type of speech that goes on in these meetings. When it's expected of me as a teacher to nip it in the bud in my classroom. So I think it should be the same for school board members. I understand that from adult to adult, it's a little bit harder because the power dynamic is different, but we need to remember that students are looking at us and they are remembering when we have stayed silent. I was in a training recently where our trainer asked for us to remember a time when we stayed silent, and why is that moment still with us? Why is that icky feeling still with us? So we don't want a lifetime of those feelings whenever we don't speak up and stop these very hateful comments that have been going on to our transphobic youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. The next person is Benjamin Walden. Please come up to the front table. Welcome. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Never done this before, but thank you for hearing me. My name is Ben Walden. I live in Keizer. I attended Salem-Keizer schools for my entire childhood. I have 3 children who have and are doing the same, and I hope that someday I'll have grandchildren who will also attend schools here. I came to let you know that I oppose banning concealed handgun licensees from carrying firearms in schools for 2 reasons. First, I don't believe it would prevent violence. The CHL holders are some of our most responsible, law-abiding citizens. There's a thorough background check process to prevent violent people from obtaining concealed handgun licenses. And the people who would come to schools with the intent of hurting children aren't going to care about whatever rules you all make today. Second, I believe that if anything, it would only encourage more violence. If we advertise to would-be attackers that they will meet even less resistance in schools, then they are more likely to attack schools. We would be making schools even easier targets and telling the attackers as much. I know that your job is not easy, and I appreciate the fact that you all have chosen to spend your time and talents overseeing our schools. I'm sure that this subject weighs very heavy on your hearts and minds. I'm just asking that you not prevent law-abiding citizens from protecting our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Benjamin. Next up is Naomi Crew. Welcome, and just go ahead whenever you're ready, Naomi.
Okay, so my pronouns are they, them, ella, and today I have many points I would like to talk about as a former student, community member, and current guardian to current students in multiple schools in the Salem-Keizer School District. First, I would like to mention how the school board should incorporate supporting ICWA into the Safe and Welcoming Schools Resolution. The ICWA is the Indian Child Welfare Act, which keeps Native children in Native families rather than the foster care system. We need real support in the form of resources. We don't want performances. The school district must partner up with ODHS and the tribes to support Oregon ICWA and Native youth. You must also stop criminalizing youth, especially in this instance, Native youth, who in this district are 3 times more likely to be suspended than their European American peers, and 4 times more likely to be entered into the criminal system. The schools must provide support to all Native students and invest in providing resources to help these students navigate any additional resources. One way to help support the well-being of Native students and all BIPOC students is to keep funding mental health resources. As I understand it, the funds allocated towards mental health recently are actually emergency funds and not all permanent. So this is wrong. What are you going to do when the emergency funds get taken away? Are we going to let our students return to having next to no resources? The school district has caused trauma in its students, especially its BIPOC students, for generations, starting before Christy Perry, who wasn't the start of it and won't be the end of it. LGBTQIA2+ students and LGBTQIA2+ students of color are being traumatized to this day as well by teachers who practice hateful ideology and do things like refuse to use preferred pronouns and names. You, the school board, have to put in place a code of conduct that teachers must follow and hold them accountable when they don't adhere to it. Denying a student their identity is hateful and does not lead to a safe and welcoming school. This code of conduct must also be followed by everyone, especially the board members themselves. You need to be accountable because hate speech is more divisive and hurtful than calling out hate speech. You need to practice what you preach and protect the students you say you stand for. Protect them more than you protect hate speech.
Thank you, Naomi. Next up is Matt Turnquist. Matt Turnquist. And on deck would be Anna Moo. Go ahead whenever you're ready, Matt.
Hi, my name is Matt Turnquist. I also grew up here in Salem and went to Salem-Keizer Public Schools, and I have 2 children in Salem-Keizer Public Schools now. And I'm here tonight in support of the BIPOC youth and all of the marginalized people that I now know have not gotten a fair shake in our public school system. And there's a few things specifically that I think could really help with that issue. One is a divestment from the student resource officers and security, and more investment in mental health resources for all of our kids, but particularly those that we have marginalized for so long. A second thing that I'd really like to see you folks advocate for is that ICWA, that Indigenous Children Welfare Act, and what you can do from your level to support those ideas and that support of those youth in our schools. Lastly, I cannot agree more with devising a code of conduct and a way to hold accountable staff, school board members, and everybody to really protect those that we marginalized for so long. I think that would make a profound difference in the community's trust in our school system, and of course, particularly for the students as they come through. So much of their time is spent in our schools. Our schools should be a welcoming place where those students feel supported and that they have multiple options available to them for opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Before we have Anna Moo come up, we do want to take a brief pause. We have devices over on the table in the back of the room so that you can hear the simultaneous translation in the language of your choice. So please take a moment if you would like to go grab a device so that we want everyone to be able to hear the translation that's going on simultaneously in the room.
Si hay personas que necesitan interpretación al mismo tiempo que las personas están prohibiendo su comentario, tenemos unas maquinitas acá en el rincón que pueden utilizar para oír la interpretación al mismo tiempo.
Thank you. Okay, Anna, are you here, Anna Moo? And on deck would be Cassidy Trout.
Good evening, Salem-Keizer School Board. My name is Anna, and I'm discussing the possession of firearms in certain public buildings discussion that you're having today. And I would like to make note that the safety of our students and families, staff, volunteers, and any visitors and others on school district campuses is of paramount importance to the school board and to the public. The ORS 166.377 has stated that a school board can adopt a policy under this section that will post a clearly visible sign at all normal points of entry and school grounds. Another point is that it will post on the school website, it will be posted on the school website identifying that all school grounds are subject to this policy. I don't see that this policy makes any sense when you're advertising to everyone that every school in the Salem-Keizer area is not defendable. every non-law-abiding person that then will know that if they want to wreak havoc in our community, it's by going to any school and no one will be there to defend against their criminal activity with a gun. It will take any police entity at least 10 minutes to respond to any school when they're called for a shooting. We know a shooter can take out many victims in that time. When one carries a concealed firearm correctly, you don't know who has it and who doesn't have a weapon, leaving a criminal to guess who and who isn't armed. People who have concealed weapons permits have taken a long time and effort to obtain that CHL, and they're not going to instigate a school shooting. These are trained individuals who will defend the defenseless against the senseless killing. Many of you are too young to remember Kip Kinkle in Springfield, Oregon, or the Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon. If there's no one to defend against a mad person with a gun in a school, then the death toll will be the responsibility of the board who creates such an irrational policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Cassidy Trout? Thanks for being here. Go ahead.
Hello, Chairwoman, Board Directors, and Superintendent, and thank you for the opportunity to give comment. My name's Cassidy, and I'm a mother here in the Salem-Keizer District. I would like to start off by saying I do not support banning CHL holders from carrying on school grounds. Not only is it an infringement on our rights, but it leaves our children vulnerable to those who wish to cause harm. I have been coming to these meetings for quite some time and have built friendships with many other parents within the district. We all share very similar concerns about the materials being made available to our students in the district. From the Stamped for Kids book available at all elementary schools that breeds division and hate through spreading false and manipulated history, to the genderqueer memoir that is nothing short of cartoon pornography. Seller sites of this book clearly state it is not appropriate for children under 18. Both of these books have been under reconsideration and decided by a committee, handpicked by who knows
There
who.
needs to be order.
Okay, hey, if we're gonna have yelling, we're gonna ask you to be removed.
Paul, is that hate speech or is that First Amendment protected speech?
This is First Amendment protected speech. The audience does not decide this issue. The board chair decides this issue.
You said not to say hate speech and she just did. That was hate speech.
Can I continue?
There are really strong protections for First Amendment rights. And this is a difficult issue. We cannot like what people say.
Banning LGBTQIA books is that's not an ideology. That's a people's way of life. That's a representation of humans.
So
when you shit on them, you shit on those books.
no, okay. This is an opportunity for public comment, and the speech is protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. So we're going to allow people to testify. Does not mean that people agree, disagree, support, don't support. It's an opportunity to have free speech. Okay, I'm not debating with the audience, so we're gonna have an orderly meeting with public comment. If we can't do that, we'll have to clear the room and have our meeting somewhere else. So we'll proceed with public comment if people can be quiet in the room, so everyone has an opportunity. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Both of these books have been under reconsideration and decided by committees handpicked by who knows who to be appropriate and necessary to have in our school libraries. This is very concerning. The lack of transparency on how this committee was formed and why these books were chosen in the first place is ridiculous. Perhaps instead of focusing on the books themselves, we should focus on the process in which materials are chosen. Last year, when I took issue with an opinion piece on why the decriminalization of drugs in our state was such a great thing, an article that was given to my freshmen in an English class, I did what many parents would do and reached out to my son's teacher to inquire how these assignments are chosen. I was told that committees are made up of all English teachers of that grade and they decide what materials will be used. I asked if there were any parents or community members on these committees for oversight or to help give their opinion. I was told no, that it was just the teachers. I then spoke with an assistant principal. When I asked the assistant principal the same question about parents and community members being involved in this process and asked if we could discuss this option, I was told maybe we should leave the education to those who are educated. Is that how the district feels about parents? That we are just a bunch of uneducated people who have no business being involved in the education of our children? Parents' opinions and concerns are important and must be taken into consideration because they are our children. We should absolutely be included in the decision-making process that takes place. Please start taking our concerns seriously, or you will no longer have children attending your schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Up next is Jessica Perez.
My name is Jessica. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a mother of 3 children in this school district. I'm here today to talk about allowing firearms at school and at school board meetings. As a mother, specifically a mother of color, it scares me to know that known white supremacists could sit in this meeting and potentially shoot one of my kids. It scares me to know that they could go out to one of their schools and hurt them because of their racist ideology. It scares me to know that we have people on this school board who are already known to be targeting black and brown kids in this district. Yet they are also the same ones who want guns to be present. The people who don't have our children's best interests in mind are only the ones who want firearms to be at school, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I constantly hear white parents come to these meetings and act like they speak for all parents with their racist organizations. Let me be one of the few to tell you that as a mother of color, I do not support any of that. I support the district's transgender policy, which allows transgender children to use the bathroom that makes them most comfortable. I don't know why a lot of people sexualize transgender children and act like they use certain bathrooms to harm our kids. They are literally children who want to use the bathroom in peace. It does not scare me at all that a transgender student could use the stall next to my child. I think they should be able to, and I encourage it. I also support academic and intellectual freedom, which means that I want all books currently in the Salem-Keizer School District to stay. I have always wanted my children to learn about anything that they want and to get as much knowledge as they can. This includes books that might be seen as inappropriate, because the reality is that these are real-world subjects that our kids will learn at some point in time, either by their peers or online. I want my children to be prepared for the real world. And as a low-income and working mother, I know that I can't personally take the time to teach them everything, but these books are the second best option. I also do not support SROs being put back in schools. I do not want my children being put on the school-to-prison pipeline because of how they look or because they aren't getting the mental health care that they need at school. I do not want my kids feeling intimidated in spaces where they should be learning and feel safe. For that reason, I also don't want any more additional security, and I want the rest of the $600,000 currently being spent on security to be reinvested into mental health care for our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here. Memphis Huckle. And then on deck we have Alex. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Memphis and I'm a sophomore at McKay High School. Thank you, Chairwoman Carson Cottingham and directors for this opportunity to speak tonight. I have decided to speak because I am concerned about safety on school campuses. I watched this last school board meeting last month and heard a lot of talk about banning concealed handgun licenses holders from carrying on school properties. This decision will now come to a vote. This worries me. Last year, as a freshman, we had a very serious and scary lockdown on my campus. Police came rushing in with weapons drawn. We were locked down for over 3 hours without any idea of what was happening. There was a lot of rumors flying around during this time. Some students reported hearing shots fired and seeing other students with firearms. I would feel much safer and able to learn in an environment where I knew I was protected. Firearms being carried by trusted and trained adults on campus would alleviate mine and many other students' concerns. Chairwoman, you mentioned at the last meeting being alarmed that kindergartners could be in a classroom with a teacher who were carrying a firearm and alluded that this should be a concern to all parents. I ask, if a teacher cannot be trusted with a firearm because they may cause harm, should they even be around children? Firearms are a tool, and like many tools, can be misused and cause grave harm. This is as true with a firearm as it is with a knife, hammer, motorized vehicle, or even a pair of scissors. If teachers in this district are so unsafe and unstable, then maybe we should look more closely at our hiring processes. I have an idea. How about instead of banning CHL holders from carrying on school grounds, we incentivize teachers and staff to become more educated in the safe handling and use of firearms through vigorous and regular trainings? Why don't we offer firearm safety courses to students of all grade levels with age-appropriate lessons? Accidents happen among young people in firearms because they are uneducated on the safe handling and use of these tools. With the removal of SROs in our district and long response times that can occur with local police, we are left extremely vulnerable to those who wish to cause harm upon students and teachers. It only makes sense that our trusted teachers and staff be ready to protect students at all times. I hope you all can look at this situation from a different point of view and vote no on banning CHL holders from carrying on school grounds. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Memphis, for being here. Just one point of clarification. Teachers and staff of Salem-Keizer are not allowed to concealed carry per our personnel policies. Just want to be really clear about that. And what I was talking about was visitors, volunteers, etc. So I just want to clarify that so we're clear. But I really appreciate students coming forward to share their perspective. Alex? And after Alex, on deck is Roberto Garcias Mendez. Audience, stop the back and forth. Alex, whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Alex. I want to start off my testimony with explaining what propaganda is. Propaganda means propaganda that forces us to accept systematic policing and ignore the trauma of police that's caused. And now that police are out of our schools, propaganda still continues to being used and to persuade us into thinking that we need more police and we want police back. You're probably wondering, how does Salem-Keizer even play a part in this, right? There's many of ways, but one example is, now we're going back to school, but shop with the cop. And this targets students of color who are low income, who have to go back to school shopping with the cop, which places them in an unsafe space just to get resources, which isn't fair. Groups and people like some of the school board members and We Stand Together, Oregon Moms Union, and many other groups who are here showing up to the school board meetings to say cops have a good impact on students, or not all cops are bad, which is completely wrong and plays a part in the propaganda that I'm talking about. And now this is where I ask you all to pay attention. I'm going to ask a series of questions in which the people will respond. If you believe that we need police to keep police out of our schools and fully reinvest the $1 million plus into students, please stand. Stay standing if you support funding mental health resources for BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, undocumented students, and students with disabilities. Stay standing if you believe in and ending and stopping the funding of systems of policing that harm our students. Stay standing if you believe people who are here in front of us today need to take accountability for the harm and generational trauma they have caused over the years. Stay standing if you support transgender and LGBTQIA+ youth in the district and believe that the district's transgender policy. Stay standing if you believe guns need to be banned in our schools. As you see, this is a huge crowd who are coming here today as students, community members, parents, and yeah, this is important. Look at it, like you're literally seeing the people who are making change and who want to make change. You know, you might see them on the phone. These are the people you see in the streets. These are students who have constantly been policed in their schools due to the people on this board, due to the wrong decision making, and then the education that is being failed on students of color. And this is why it's important to listen to students and listen to parents of color, not only white students and white parents. As we are the stakeholders, I'm a stakeholder. The reason why you all get funding is because I continue to go to school. I also believe that because I have to spend half of my life at school, I should be getting resources at my school also.
Thank you.
I shouldn't have to go outside of school.
Thanks, Alex. Roberto Garcias Mendez. And after Roberto is Angelique Prater.
My name is Tlazoltecan, my pronouns are he, him, and I refuse to say any more information about myself due to the very noticeable and visible white supremacy here at this moment and after this meeting as well. I would like to say while the increase in the mental health budget is a positive thing, I want to see these funds go into supporting the mental health needs of all students, especially BIPOC students. I would like you all to hire more psychiatrists and counselors, especially of color and that are bilingual. We need culturally proficient psychiatrists and counselors so that students don't have to go through even more structural barriers in order to get the help they need. Let me remind you that regardless of a student's experience with the school, they need to be constantly supported. But how can they constantly be supported when SKSD consciously chooses surveillance, security, and systems of punitive discipline? I was one of the youth that was racially profiled and harassed at Roberts High School simply for watering plants. I was one of the youth that had been on public property, but was threatened by the security guard to have the police called on me and other youth. Not only was this situation traumatizing for me, but I can only imagine how traumatizing it is for students, especially BIPOC students, to be racially profiled and criminalized by the same security guards at their own schools every single day. Just last year alone, the district reported that students of color, especially Latinx students, were the ethnicity that received the most expulsions and suspensions, which clearly shows the disproportionate and racist maintenance of criminalizing BIPOC students. If I can't feel comfortable even just watering flowers without having the police almost called on me, I genuinely can't imagine the constant targeting of BIPOC youth in schools. This experience makes me believe that we not only need to reinvest funds from these hired security guards into mental health, but to make sure that the police are also kept out of schools. The people that call for the return of SROs, namely white supremacists here and on the board, such as Daniel Bethel and Marty Hyen, are openly racist
Please
in their views
refrain
of
from
BIPOC
name
youth.
calling, please.
All right. Are openly racist in their views of BIPOC youth in and outside of schools. To think that we need the return of the police to quote unquote deter students from being themselves continues the racist history of Salem-Keizer and feeds the school to prison pipeline. Let me be clear, police and especially SROs have been statistically proven to be ineffective and essentially useless to stop school shootings. Look at Uvalde for reference. The same white supremacists that I am talking about are unsurprisingly the same ones that want to keep firearms in schools. We do not need people with racist, transphobic, and homophobic ideologies to be carrying firearms around BIPOC students and LGBTQIA+ students. We need to keep BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ students safe, which means no firearms in schools, no security guards, and especially no SROs. We need more mental health and to start decriminalizing students. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Angelique? And after Angelique is Sandra H.
All right, before I start, I want to make sure that we're not intentionally policing the language of students of color who are coming to testify today because no one else before him was policed for their language. Hello, my name is Angelique, and my pronouns are they, them, and I will not be saying any more information about myself due to the fact that there are white supremacists on this school board and watching this meeting. Earlier this year, I was doxxed by white supremacists in the city who were helped by board member Daniel Bethel as she sent them screenshots of a message that I specifically sent her as a constituent and as a student in this district. I am a student, and during this time, I was preparing for my final exams where I actually couldn't even take the time to emotionally process the situation or anything because I had a paper due that day. But the fact that she was even able to do that is beyond messed up. I live in constant fear that I'm going to be followed when I'm out in public, or that one of these people will show up to my house and harm me because of these actions. It is yet another traumatic experience that I've been forced to endure as a community organizer in Salem. I am tired of us, BIPOC youth, being uncomfortable at these meetings because of the type of people that attend them and harass us, but even more frustrated by the fact that you have an actual board member helping these people in their white supremacist actions, and nothing is being done about it. You need to hold each other accountable for your actions. You need to do something about the fact that Daniel Bethel is a literal white supremacist who is helping other white supremacists harass, attack, and instill fear in BIPOC youth in this
we
city.
mean all across the board.
Daniel Bethel is not the only person who needs to be held accountable for her actions. At the last work session, all school board members also sat here quietly while Marty Hayen was actively transphobic and homophobic in her criticisms of the book Gender Queer. While her and other white supremacists claim to only be talking about this book, the reality is that they're not just talking about that book, they're actually criticizing transgender and LGBTQIA students in general. This should not be allowed at school board meetings, especially when earlier this year you made a pride proclamation to uplift LGBTQIA students, yet they are constantly ostracized at every single meeting. It is not free speech, it is hate speech. And by the way, when we come here to talk about these legitimate issues of hate speech, it is not divisive speech. We are talking about our realities as students and youth in this district. On the topic of white supremacy, I also want to talk about firearms being allowed at school board meetings and in schools. Based on my experience firsthand with the type of individuals who want to bring guns into these places, I know that I'm put in immediate danger by them. The same ones who dox BIPOC youth online, harass us, take pictures of us like they were just outside when we were waiting to come in, want to bring guns into these places. What happens when we're sitting at a meeting and one of them gets so mad that they shoot at us? Who is going to be the first one put in danger? The BIPOC youth who testify against them and their harmful actions on the school board. I don't want another thing to be worried about. I don't want to have to worry that these people will shoot my peers at school. I don't want to live in fear that when I exit these doors, I could die. If they want to have their guns outside of these places, that's fine, but considering how much these grown adults instigate with kids, they shouldn't be trusted to potentially take our lives away. We deserve to live and know that we are safe.
Thank you. Sandra? And after Sandra, we have Samuel Townsend on deck. Sandra H., and then Samuel Townsend.
I would like to give my spot up for a student since it's not guaranteed that they will get to give testimony.
Okay, just state your name, please.
My name is David. I'm in the 7th grade. Today I will talk about respect. I believe that respect is very important right now. I feel that a lot of teachers, school board members, and some parents don't give respect to students. We need our teachers and school board to respect our gender identity and our culture and language. In 2021, we took police out of schools. We can now use that money to pay for teachers, counselors, and other school staff that understand students like me. We need more teachers of color. We need more counselors of color. We need all our teachers and counselors to understand and respect the diverse backgrounds of students, like our race, gender, and sexual orientation. We also need books that reflect our experiences, and we cannot let racism and transphobia take this away from students. To build respect for students, we must have systemic change and not just talk about change. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, David. Samuel Townsend. And then after Samuel is Leslie Ryswick. Thanks for being here. Just start whenever you're ready.
First thing first, this is stolen land. This is Kahlua land. I need you to know that. First thing first, my name is Samuel Townsend. I'm a community member here. I've been here for a few years now, and I've been working with Luz for a few years now as is. And what I've been seeing is so many kids that have been traumatized with events that happen in Texas, with kids here in our community just wanting to plant a flower just to tend to the garden. That's all they want to do, and yet you got white people harassing them. You got school board members like you right there saying things that you should not even be saying. My bad, you, Marty, right there, saying things they should not be saying. That should not be a thing. You're over here policing our language when we just want to get our point known like these fascists over here. The kids want to be kids. They don't need to be worried about a gun. They don't need to be worried about someone walking in and shooting them because they're kids. They don't need to be worried about the fact that they're black. Now a cop is going to look at them crazy and probably kill them because they're breathing. They just want to be kids. That's all they want. I ain't got much to say. I'm just saying that you need to listen to your community, not just them. Them. Will the people right behind me please stand up and put your signs up? Look at them. Look at every single one of them. This is your community. This is the one that's been fighting every single day. This is the one that's been standing up for their rights. This is the one that feels threatened in their own home and their own school. You need to listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Leslie Ryswick, and then after Leslie is Vicente Olivas. Do we have Leslie here? Leslie Ryswick? Nope. Okay. Vicente Olivas. And then after Vicente is Brenda Lopez. Go ahead whenever you're ready, Vicente.
So, my pronouns is he and his. My name's Vicente, as y'all may know. I have a cool question for y'all. When y'all look at me, what y'all think? Guys think I'm a criminal? No response, all right. Well, I've attended Salem-Keizer School District all my life. Still attending it. I sit here with this hat. Do you guys know what this hat represents? It represents my people behind me. How I dress doesn't mean I'm targeting anyone. It's just me being me, expressing who I am. I'm not no police puppet. Y'all use police to target us, target brown and black youth for how they look, how they act. When I was in 7th grade, my promotor, my mentor, he was taking me home one evening. Right outside my own house, I had a police officer stop me and point a gun at me because I had gloves on, trying to get into my own house, where my mom, my baby sister, my brothers, my siblings were inside, my grandma, just because of how I look. I'm just a kid. I'm probably the nicest kid you guys would ever meet. I'm probably the kindest kid you would ever meet. But y'all just rather sit there and look at me and think I'm a criminal because of how I look, how I dress, how I present myself. Think about that. A 7th grade. Cop pointed a gun because he had gloves on. I wasn't even doing anything other than trying to get inside my house. Luckily, I had my mentor right there. Get outside. He stood outside his car, stood right in front of that police officer saying he's just a kid. You know how traumatizing that is? Do you know how crazy it is? You know how many experiences I've had like that growing up? Too many to count, too many to tell y'all. Man, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have so many things going on with me, but I try every single day. I get up every single day. Think about that. I want y'all to really think about that.
Thank you. Brenda Lopez.
So do you guys mention the first and last name every time? Because I was unaware, and I would have really appreciated for my last name not to be said.
No problem. Yeah, just
to bring that up. So I didn't really prepare much. I just want to talk here about my own personal experience. And I'm really scared to talk in front of all these folks, especially all you folks. It's a lot of white faces. And I'm usually not heard by folks like you guys. So I've grew up in the Salem-Keizer district my whole life. I really, really, really would appreciate for the funds to be, sorry, you guys are scary. Mental health resources, better psychologists, well-trained psychologists. When I was in high school, my psychologist was my counselor or advisor was asking me in regards to my undocumented parents and myself. He was asking me for education. You guys don't know what it feels like to be an undocumented person, walking the halls, hearing the kids say race all the time. You don't know how we're perceived. And so when an advisor is asking you these questions, well, how am I supposed to feel? I'm shaking because this is a very vulnerable position for me. And having to speak to you guys, because I have this prejudice maybe that you guys don't believe should I say, but that's the truth.
Please refrain from swearing because we're broadcasting.
Right.
Thank you.
I forget.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. I just wanted to say that because it was really hard growing up in the Salem-Keizer district. It was really, really hard. My parents couldn't even take me to schools because they knew that the cops were there. And that was really anxiety-ridden for them. You know, my dad wasn't going to go there because the chota was there. So just to even have people argue to have cops back in the schools knowing that my parents, that was a huge anxiety-ridden thing for them. I just want you guys to think about my parents because it's not just me that's undocumented or DACA or whatever going to these schools and the youth. Yeah, that's, I guess, all I wanted to say. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Brenda. Santos Martinez. And after Santos, we'll have our final person, Dustin Caldwell.
So my name is Santos, he, him pronouns, and I'm here to tell my story. I've been directly impacted by the school prison pipeline and deportation pipeline. The first time I got a punitive punishment was in elementary. I was in the 3rd grade, and they expelled me for bringing a nail filer because they thought I was going to use it as a weapon. But in reality, I found that I left it in my pocket. I was wrongfully expelled, and they didn't want me back. Since going to school was part of most of my life, it got harder because the system and the teachers were pushing me away because I needed extra help. And I was a really energetic kid. When growing up in a low-income neighborhood, people have unhealed trauma, and that consists of police criminalizing people just by walking down the street. I've seen a lot of unforgettable stuff, like drugs, my mom getting physically and mentally abused by boyfriends, and my dad wasn't in the picture, and I saw more violence. This one evening, I was trying to go to the park to meet up with some friends. I was stopped by a gang unit officer and 4 other police officers, and each one of them had their guns drawn on me. Imagine a kid walking down the street, and out of nowhere, this cop comes by, opens his door, and says, "Freeze." And 4 other police officers looks at you with doing the same thing. Just imagine that. I didn't have a safe place to call home. I was in the streets most of the time, hanging out with older peers because of my environment. I started to use drugs. The first year of 6th grade, I started to use methamphetamines. That was my drug of choice. Because, of that, I had an anger outburst. I was consistently missing school and other stuff, my circumstances because of the anger outburst. I was in and out of detention centers, suspensions, and even past rooms most of the time I was at school. Then without hesitation, they decided to expel me because I got in a fight. During those outbursts and behavioral issues, they didn't ask for help. Like, I was asking for help, but they didn't know what to do with me. They didn't show any empathy for me because of that incident. I went to Roberts, that alternative school by the state prison. And for the rest of my middle school years, it was all hell there. No counselors, only police, in and out of juvenile systems.
Santos. Thank you. Dustin Caldwell.
Good evening, Board. My name is Dustin Caldwell. I'm a parent here in Salem-Keizer, 3 students currently attending Salem-Keizer School District. I'm also a graduate of McNary in 1999. And man, I hear all the emotion coming from the kids testifying this evening. And it really hits me in a spot where I get it. I understand what they're saying. But what I want the board to understand is that you have been put in a position as leaders of this community where we expect you to make decisions based upon facts and statistical evidence, not on your emotions. When we use only our emotions to make decisions, that's okay when those decisions are for you and you alone. But that's not the case here. You're talking about banning concealed carry permit holders from attending their kids' place of education and having the ability to defend themselves and the ones that they love. That's not something that you get to decide. It is our public money, it is our public building, it is our public school system, and I am the public. My kids attend the school. I want to be able to go with them. I volunteer inside their classrooms. We attend sporting events at the schools, and I want to be able to do that while exercising my rights. The district is trying to supersede my civil rights. That's not a position that we've put you in power to do. Policy aside, you're messing with my constitutional rights. That's not what you're here to do. Please, please, please use evidence, not your emotions. I have yet to see a single piece of evidence presented by anybody on the board that shows that concealed carry permit holders are an issue, that they've caused an issue, that they've caused anybody any amount of harm. Does anybody have any evidence of that being the case? Does anybody have any evidence of a concealed carry permit holder causing any sort of issues at any district in the country? If you can't say yes to that and give specific things, then what are you doing? You're using your emotions to make decisions that can impact lives. You're taking away my ability to defend my life. That's not an okay thing to do. Please, please, just use statistics, use evidence, and stop using your emotions. I understand that emotions are where you go to, but at the end of the day, you really have to have checks and balances, and those checks and balances need to come from statistical evidence that's indisputable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will take a break. We'll be back at 7:45.
Osvaldo.
Sure.
Si gustan acercarse más adelante para que estén un poquito más cerca, bienvenidos.
Okay, are we ready to go? Are we good? Okay. Next up, we have number 7, action items. Action item A is to prohibit weapons, including concealed weapons, per ORS 166.377, and directs the superintendent to develop and enact an administrative policy to achieve this outcome. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve action item 7A, prohibiting weapons, including concealed carry weapons, per ORS 166.377, and direct the superintendent to develop and enact administrative policy to achieve this outcome.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And is there discussion on this topic? Director Hyen.
There are quite a lot of list of people that will still be able to carry on school grounds. If you think there won't be any firearms, if you look in the RS, there's quite a list. The only people that are affected by this are parents and regular law-abiding citizens, and potentially our children. We do have students that bring weapons into the school even though it's not allowed, because people don't follow laws or rules unless they want to. I thank God for a person carrying and saving who knows how many lives in Indiana in July in a mall. And I thank God for a person that ended a violent crime spree, a knife-wielding robber who was confronted by an alert citizen who just happened to stop at a convenience store and was armed with a handgun. There are many such stories, but the media tends to brush these under the rug because it doesn't fit the narrative they are pushing on the American public. The highest crime rates are in the cities who have the strictest gun laws. Gun laws don't stop crime. Criminals don't care about your rules. They just announce you're a soft target. So my questions are these. How are you going to enforce this? Are you going to profile people? Based on some of the testimony today, one might think you might only profile white people. Make them go through metal detectors? Pat down visitors or board members? If you can't enforce a policy, you have no business creating one. And the other question is, where does DPSST license holders fall into this policy? For those of you who don't know, DPSST license holders range from police officers to armed security and probably other levels of licensure. They are not really just CHL carriers. Where do they fit? I didn't find any mention of this in the ORS. So, just in case since it's not clear, I would like to propose an amendment that DPSST license holders are exempt from the CHL license carry ban.
Can we get clarification from Mr. Dikopoulos regarding that ORS and the list of approved individuals that can still be on campuses?
I'd be happy to address that, Chair.
Go ahead.
So the statute in question provides a number of people who are exempt from the concealed weapons ban. Police officers or reserve officers, parole and probation officers, while acting within the scope of their employment, federal officers defined by another statute, or certified reserve officers or corrections officers, while acting in the scope of their employment, a person summoned by an officer to assist in making an arrest or preserving the peace while the summoned person is engaged in assisting the officer, an honorably retired law enforcement officer, an active or reserve member of the military forces when engaged in the performance of duty. That's the statutory list that gets carved out of your proposal. Director Hyan asks about BPSST licensees. This is the state agency that licenses police officers. But they also license other professionals, firefighters, security officer, private security officers, and the third group is private investigators. So my reading of the law would suggest that those three categories of persons would be banned from carrying a concealed weapon on your school grounds if you pass such a policy. And Director Hyan's proposal is to exempt those categories of licensees with BPSST. One final comment is we do have situations where, and I don't know how often this occurs, but where we do have an armed security person who might be coming from a bank, Wells Fargo or something like this, to retrieve money for safe storage. Those people carry an open weapon. And under our current policies, we already prohibit open carry on our campuses. And I don't know exactly how the district deals with those, or even if it's true that they're armed guards, I don't know. But in any event, what we're talking about is concealed weapons, not open carry, because we already have a policy on open carry.
Thank you. Is there a second for Director Hyan's amendment? Director Chandragiri?
I would like to second.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. As I'm hearing from, there are many categories that are already exempt, even with this, if this policy were to pass. And other than putting up a sign in front of schools, it is not going to do anything more. Number one.
Director Chandragiri, this is just discussion on the amendment.
Correct.
We can go back to discussion on the floor.
I'm going to just stay with the amendment itself.
Sorry.
So my question is, are we going to put all the exemptions in the sign saying these are all exempt people from this particular policy if it gets enacted?
Superintendent Perry? Would we be placing all of the exemptions listed in the statute that our attorney just read to us on the signage on the school, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we would just have the sign of no weapons on campus, including concealed carry, which is what the law allows.
Other discussion on the amendment?
I have a clarifying question. What actually would this amendment do then? What kind of impact would it have just to allow an armed security guard to come in to collect cash? Do we have armed security men or women coming onto our campuses?
No, it would only, as I understand the amendment, it would allow people trained at DPSST who are concealed carry permit holders to concealed carry, correct? Or open carry? Well, our policy wouldn't allow open carry.
To conceal carry. This is all about
So
concealed
just to
carry.
conceal carry. So folks who are private investigators or private security who have been trained at DPSST to conceal carry on our campuses.
Madam Chair, to clarify, so whatever open carry rules already apply would continue to apply. I did hear of a situation from an email. I don't know if it's true about armed security for armored trucks. I thought they said they were open carrying, but I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. But so whatever open carry rules exist now would continue to exist.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the proposed amendment? Okay, then, go ahead, Director Hyan.
And just for those who don't know much about DPSST, they do require annual training and recertification.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll take a vote on the amendment. Director Avila? No. Director Chandragiri?
No. Yes.
Director Eno-Espresi?
No.
I'm a no. Chair Carson Cottingham? Second Vice Chair Guzman-Ortiz?
No.
Director Bethel?
Yes.
Director Hyan?
Yes.
The amendment does not move forward, and so we'll go back to discussion on the action item as presented in the agenda. Is there other discussion? Director Chandragiri.
Thank you, Chair. I just think this particular policy is not going to do anything. It's not going to prevent suicide. It's not going to prevent violence. It's not going to help contribute towards the safety that we are all looking for. There has been 52% increase in active shooter incidents in 2021 and 98% increase in 4 years prior to that. We have had over 100 weapon-related disciplinary incidents in the last 8 or 9 months in our own school district. We lost a 16-year-old youth who was involved in firearms in the shooting elsewhere. And so there has been increase in increasingly missing upstream red flag signs, and a lot of youth are getting involved in it. As recent as 2 days ago, there was one. So the reason I'm sharing this is it's not clear to me what we are hoping to achieve by having this policy. First of all, if somebody carries a concealed handgun license, how will one know that the person is carrying? So it is only going to lead to unnecessary profiling based on the color or some assumptions made about that person, which is precisely what we don't want. We don't want our own implicit biases and fears to start leading to a situation. We don't want such policies to be misused to profile some parent or some visitor and lead to unnecessary legal trouble or lead to a situation where they are prevented from coming to the schools. You know, we have not reached out to law enforcement community and sought a focus group input from them. We haven't contacted the veterans. We haven't contacted other communities, nor explained the steps we are undertaking to ensure safety. We have not made any authentic attempts to engage or seek input during this summer break. This will not stop the gangs, criminals, and active shooters from coming to school and committing crime. It will only lead to systematically profiling people based on skin color or assumptions and continue to alienate family or be used to exclude families or visitors based on assumptions, threats of legal charge, etc. And also, what about the liability for a good Samaritan if he happens to be the one that stopped an active shooter? This is really a concerning thing. I've been practicing psychiatry. This is not the way to go about preventing safety. I'm for gun safety. I am for people taking all measures. Let's train people how to use and make sure they use it responsibly, and only responsible people are using it. But this is not the way to achieve anything. So let's get to the root cause of the problems and address it. This is only going to be a feel-good policy. It is going to lead to unintended consequences. Hence, I will be voting no on this policy because it really is not going to add any value or safety. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Chandragiri. Other discussion from board members, including Student Advisor Brennan?
We, during our discussions, keep assuming that people with concealed carry are always, that their weapon is always fully concealed, and most of the times it's not always that way, but again, we are making the assumption that everybody who has a concealed carry has the capacity to fully conceal it, and that they know at all times that it is fully concealed. What happens most often is, at least when we see it in, say, TV shows, is that sometimes guns are underneath clothing and hidden in bags, which we know from students finding a concealed carry in a woman's purse a couple years back in schools, Salem-Keizer public schools. But the thing about clothing is clothing moves when I move. If I reach up like I'm raising my hand, my shirt might partially come untucked from my pants, and that's okay. That's normal. That's how physics works. However, that movement can cause a previously concealed carry weapon to be then unconcealed. And again, we're making the assumption that it's always concealed 100% of the time, and the person is fully aware of when it's not concealed and that they can fix it. And not all the times that they can see is when it's not concealed, which is times when students who are typically shorter when they're younger are at their eye level and they can see that. As well as putting up signage would create a perception of safety. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I'm going to put this out here now, is that on airlines we have air marshals. Air marshals in the past couple years haven't made very many arrests. And the only reason that we have air marshals at this point is for the perception of safety. Because after 9/11, people were scared to be on airplanes. So we put air marshals on airlines so that way people would feel safe. Putting up signage would do the same thing as air marshals. It would create a perception of safety rather than creating more perception of fear around guns.
Thank you. Other discussion? Director Hyan?
I agree with your statement. It would give perception of safety, but not actual safety.
Student Advisor McDonald.
Yeah, I would kind of like to piggyback off what Raylan said about the possibility, and I think it's a pretty feasible possibility of a concealed carry momentarily not being concealed and some sort of weapon being exposed to passing by students or teachers. And I'm just personally thinking if I were to see a volunteer or a parent walk into a school and a weapon on them, that would immediately be something that made me feel unsafe because regardless of whether they have the qualifications or whether they're a law-abiding citizen or not. I don't know that by just looking at them and seeing them with a weapon. And I also know that I'm somebody who's been around guns my life, and I feel generally comfortable around guns in appropriate settings. But we heard testimony from students and former students today who have traumatic instances related to guns, and so I can only imagine a higher degree of that unsafe feeling if a random person who may or may not be a quote-unquote law-abiding citizen walking into a school, if a student were to see a gun, that could be something that could trigger a post-traumatic stress incident or just make the students or teachers feel unsafe. And so I think that's a hypothetical that's not out of reach. And in terms of just keeping our schools safe, there's a physical and actual safety aspect, but then also the safe feeling, which is really instrumental to learning and feeling like you belong at school. So I just don't think that's like something that's out of reach and something we ought to consider when we allow people with concealed carry to walk into our schools.
Thank you.
I'd just like to share that,
go ahead.
I do feel that this will create a safer school, a safer environment. We're not asking our teachers to become trained in handling their guns. A teacher's job is one thing, to teach our students. I was having a conversation with a former board chair in La Grande, Oregon, who was talking about how safe he wanted to also have concealed weapons remain in public schools for his district. But when the sheriff talked to him and asked and said, when I come in here flying at 100 miles per hour and we have an active shooter situation and you have a gun on you, I'm going to take you out because I don't have the time to take the time to ask you, are you a law-abiding citizen with the open carry or concealed weapon carry permit? I'm going to shoot you because we have an open situation. You're not going to be saving anybody. You're probably going to be creating more harm and probably harm to yourself. I'm also reminded of the Texas man who went to an elementary school, concealed weapon carry, tried to get out and shot himself. He was arrested later. Luckily, no other kid was hurt. So if we can prevent that from happening in our schools, then I'm going to vote yes for it.
Thank you, Director Avila. Student Advisor Brennan.
I'd just like to respond to Director Hyen that perception of safety is only a mere facet of actual safety. So having a perception of safety is crucial for people to be and feel safe.
Thank you. Director Guzman-Ortiz.
Thank you. Again, I think one of the things that we've heard time and time again, and I just hope that folks who are listening in and tuning in understand that licensed teachers and personnel are not allowed to conceal carry at this point. I think there's been a misunderstanding of that. And so this would expand to volunteers, for example, which in many cases might be dropping in on, once or twice on an annual basis, or some might be visiting classrooms more regularly. So there's just a huge array of who might be coming in and what that would look like. Just head out on my comments as well, echoing what Raylan said, right, that passing this policy would increase that sense of safety, and I see that as our duty and responsibility as a board governing the school district. And lastly, as I've heard that concealed handgun license carriers are some of the most law-abiding citizens, I will look to them to abide by the policy enacted by the board if passed, and respect the ban to conceal carry in our schools. But with that, I will be supporting this policy.
Thank you. Director Hyen?
Yes, just to clarify, in addition to the employment agreement where teachers and staff cannot carry, volunteers actually cannot carry either, is my understanding of current policy. Am I wrong on that one?
Yeah, volunteers would fall under visitors. We would try to enforce it especially if we saw, because it wouldn't be concealed then. But it is a technicality that this new law passed by our legislature allows us to
Okay.
close that loophole.
So my previous assumption was volunteers were also not allowed to conceal carry, and so that the only people affected by this is parents who are dropping off or picking up their children, because technically you can't even have a firearm in your car, locked away, apparently.
Superintendent Perry, can you clarify again? My understanding is that visitors/volunteers, parents, people at football games, soccer matches can all conceal carry
Technically can conceal
currently.
carry right now. And rentals on our facilities could conceal carry right now. So any rentals in an evening. Of course, if you see a weapon, then it's no longer concealed, so you can do something, but then you're in a tricky spot.
I don't have a whole lot to add to discussion. I've spoken the last two meetings where we've had lengthy discussions on this topic, but I'll just say that, you know, Oregon is currently the only state in the Northwest that allows the general public to carry guns in K through 12 schools. So Alaska, Idaho, Washington, California, Montana, Nevada, and I recently learned that Texas also do not allow guns, including concealed carry, in their schools. And for all the other reasons I've mentioned the last two meetings, I don't think they belong in Salem-Keizer's public schools, and I will be supporting this policy. Director Chandragiri.
Chair, you know, I appreciate this discussion, but, you know, the real question is, we have no mechanism, just like in airport security, etc., to screen systematically who is bringing in, who is not bringing in. A single policy alone, without having a set of policies working together and implementation and monitoring plan, is really not going to bring that safety that we are all hoping. So I read the newspaper article in Statesman Journal about it. So if somebody comes to know, then we will inform the church that is renting and tell the church nicely that next time don't bring them. So this is not my idea of safety, because it's like telling somebody, please be nice, don't bring it again. That is not an implementation plan. You don't do that in the TSA when you're flying. Everybody is clear about it. There is a series of policies. And when you're flying, everybody knows there is no weapon inside. I don't think we can do that kind of screening systematically. Everybody walks in through the door, a CT scanner or an X-ray machine, and there's a clear signage. And so really we have to come down to asking, are we letting our emotions decide of what's going on? In my opinion, we allowed our emotions to decide. It was more like a pressure relief when we eliminated 13 SROs. When our discipline problem has gone out of the very high, we still had very high, legal trouble, children getting into legal trouble, etc. Here again, we don't have any data. We don't have any baseline data with concealed handgun licensees using it irresponsibility. Anytime we pass a policy, we need to really know why we are passing, how are we going to monitor it? Is it this policy we passed is effective? How are we going to make sure that we are implementing it? And if we don't, and if, say, there is a shooting, will that put our board and the district liable? Because now we have promised the community that we have adopted this policy, we have put a signboard outside, and what if there is an active shooter? Because we have a lot of risk factors in the students who have been suspended, eliminated. Over 100 weapons have been brought in. So what is our liability, both civil rights violation liability and the liability for the board and the district? Because we are almost making an empty promise to the community saying by putting this sign, everybody is going to be safe. This is a very audacious statement, in my opinion. I don't think I feel comfortable that we can make such promises when we said the same thing with SRO and the numbers of suspension, expulsion, law enforcement referral has gone to unprecedented high numbers. Will somebody clarify what legal liability we will carry?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to first Vice Chair Nospresi first, and then Director Hyen.
I just wanted to ask the superintendent that with this policy that we are passing, is it amending our INS, the district's INS A024 policy? Which is the visitors to schools and campuses?
Yeah. It would also, we need to look at our rental agreement language, a few other places in policy that, but that would be the primary policy that would be.
So the outlined, I guess, discipline in that policy is what would be followed if somebody was found to violate the policy.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
Director Hyen?
Just a final comment. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you brought up Texas, that's correct. They cannot conceal carry in a school in Texas. Think about how different Uvalde might have been while those police officers were outside. If there had been one person in that school, one person with a CHL that could legally carry in that school.
All right. So I think we've had quite a bit of discussion. We're not going to answer the legal liability question right now. If we need an answer to that later, that's fine. But I think that goes outside of the scope of the policy that we're voting on right now. If that's an issue as the district implements the policy, we can visit it at that time. So if other directors who have not spoken wish to speak on this topic, please let me know, or I'll move to the vote. Or Student Advisor Brennan.
I would like to clarify, according to Google, that Texas banned concealed carry before Uvalde, just as a fact check.
Thank you. Any other directors wish to speak? Okay. So we'll take a vote now on the agenda, the action item as written on the agenda. Directors in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
We have 4 directors in favor: Avila, Espresi, Carson Cottingham, Guzman Ortiz. Directors opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
Nay.
Director Chandra Giri, Director Bethel, Director Hyen are nays. The policy passes. All right, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is our consent calendar. There's going to be order in the room. Order, thank you. The consent calendar. First, Superintendent Perry, do you wish to review any of the items on the consent calendar?
Yeah, I do not.
Okay. Does any board member wish to pull an item on the consent calendar? Director Hyen?
I'm going to shock you. It's not going to be personal actions, Christy.
Whoa.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's going to be the equity and anti-racism resolution.
Okay. Is anything else going to be pulled from the consent calendar by any directors? Okay. I would like to take a motion for the remainder of the consent calendar.
Chair, I would like to move that we adopt Resolution 2022-23-1, Safe and Welcoming Schools.
Can we adopt the other 2 items on the consent calendar? Okay. So items A through C, Director Chandragiri has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those we don't need a discussion, it's consent calendar. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay. Did we get that, Alice? Director Bethel and Director Hyen voted no on consent items A through C. And the rest of the board voted in favor. Okay, we will now open discussion on consent calendar item D. Director Hyen?
Thank you. I will be voting no because, again, this year, I have voted for these every year except for last year I wasn't here, and this year I will not be voting for it. It has the same divisive language. I heard a lot of divisiveness in this room, and this kind of stuff, to me, just promotes it. It creates two groups, the oppressed and the oppressors. I'm going to give an example from an email I got from a grandparent in our community. Last summer, my 6-year-old granddaughter came home from her Indian summer school program and in a sad voice told me she wished her skin was more brown. Imagine my surprise at this innocent young child with jet black hair, brown skin, and blue eyes would be manipulated into having such negative thoughts about her body image at the hands of a program associated with the district. The adults that were supposed to lift her up instead made her the subject of their bias. Each and every student is important. Each and every student is an individual that cannot be replaced. We need to start caring about and honoring each student and stop putting people into groups. It's time to return to real education.
Any other comments? Director Avila.
You know, I do appreciate that very much. I remember reading that email. But on that same note, you know, my name is Osvaldo Avila. And when I introduced myself, growing up, they couldn't call me Osvaldo. They asked me what my white name was. So they called me Balo. I grew up as Balo. I thought I was done and over with that. I thought our society was there. But unfortunately, we're not there. We continue to have people who do not want to see me as a person or see me as my name. Try to say my name. Chop it up. That is very respectful. But when you try to ask me, because you can't say my name, and you want to call me, which was done at Detroit Lake, can I call you Doug? Do I look like a Doug? No. So I told him some very kind words. So this is why it's important to address the systemic oppression of black and brown indigenous students. You know, we're fighting all the Indian boarding schools. Today, a webinar of our marginalized and multi-general trauma-informed practices, what they called Indian boarding schools. They didn't call them Indian boarding schools, especially for the natives that had to go there and got taken away, their names, got their hair chopped off, and they were assimilated. They lost their culture, they lost their family ties, they lost their languages. So this is why I feel very important and committed to this equity and anti-racism resolution. There's a lot of learning that we need to continue to do, society, through our education, embracing all cultures, building it in within our mathematics, building it in within our science and reading literature, different books that do not just represent the dominant cultures. We need to start embedding this work among our educators, our students, our parents, all community members.
Thank you. Director Chandragiri.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a very important resolution. The way I saw is to me, being an anti-racist is a practice, not a declaration. You know, last year we passed this anti-racist board. We had accepted this anti-racist board, passed, focused on equity. So I just looked back and said, did we really live up to this? Or we just passed a resolution? As a board and district, there are a couple of things that come up which I really want to share to illustrate the difference between passing a resolution and living up to it. We remain silent and fail to speak truth to power and call out our state when, due to systemic policy barriers, nearly 320 small Black and BIPOC person-run CBOs were eliminated from accessing $50 million of summer learning grant to serve our BIPOC and vulnerable
Point
students.
of order, I mean, it's not a grant that the district was running.
Well, let me finish, please. Let me finish. I did bring it to the attention of our board. We are a very powerful board with legislative and policy committee members. I wish we had spoken up. Speaking truth to power is an important part of being anti-racist. As a board, we also took steps.
Director Chandragiri, I think the Oregon School Boards Association took that issue on. Everybody was supportive of remedying the issue that the legislature created.
Well, none of those organizations got anything. They were just eliminated, period. I was there in Oregon School Board Association, that meeting. And we, Hispanic children from Hispanic communities are twice likely to be suspended and expelled. We had close to 8,000 suspensions and 2 appeals. And I begin to wonder how many of these children's civil rights were violated. Yet we remained silent. We didn't discuss, we didn't drill down on the data. We didn't allow any discussion on that to find out what are the underlying root causes of this disparity. When I went through a district policy and I shared with one of the district's leaders, I said, when our district policy structurally excludes authentic family engagement, to me, it's very painful. It just shows like we are just bare minimum complying with the Title I requirement. It almost appears like a tokenism, but that's not really authentic connection in my opinion. We use the word reference to Muslim and Jewish community being targeted. We as a board appear, but I don't think we have ever reached out to the Muslim community or Islamic community. Until very recently, I reached to them, the leader of them, and kind of made some connections.
Director Chandragiri, it's unfair to make blanket statements.
Well, you can correct me after I'm done, please. I'm not trying to say, I was respectful enough. This is my observation. I'm going to share, and then you have a chance to say this is not correct. You have a chance to say that.
It's not a debate.
Yeah. So personally, I feel this is a very important thing, and we really have to live up to it. I'm a person of color in this board. I have experienced what it feels like being excluded from committees and participation. Of course, we are making some changes this year. I don't want anybody to feel excluded like this. As a person of color's public servant, I ask that we do not do what white supremacy had done to us, people of color, for centuries, of not being inclusive, not being treated where there is authentic inclusion. And I am totally against racism, against any dangerous forms of white supremacy like the ones the world saw in Nazi era, South African apartheid. I believe as our nation should once and for all finish the unfinished business of racism and heal, as we are all tied to each other in our common destiny. Yet I cannot support a policy like this at this particular time which we are just making this declaration without living up to it. Now more than ever, we really want, for the sake of our children, to authentically engage with all our communities, families, and heal our community. Different parents may have different ideas and perspectives, but this policy lends itself to more divisiveness and mutual suspicion as opposed to bringing our communities together. We need to have the courage to sit and listen to different perspectives. I don't see this is the pathway. Instead of this, a good start would be a systemic apology to our communities and start the process of systemic reconciliation. And then we can start talking about, are we transparent with our data? Are we accountable? Are we using data to mitigate our own implicit biases in policy making? Are we able to speak truth to power and hold each other and the district and the state accountable? Have courageous conversation to dismantle systemic barriers. ensure we center all our discussion on those harmed by disparate discipline, poor engagement, sense of belonging, and work to increase the agency of our communities. Ensure there is authentic family engagement, inclusion, and diversity. I don't see our declarations versus our actions. I see the difference. We heard from the students today.
Director Chandragiri.
Hence,
can
I
you
will
wrap
not
it
be
up,
voting
please?
in support of this.
Thank you. Are there others that would like to speak to this? Okay, I'll just say that same with last year, the language is unchanged. Everyone had opportunities to weigh in, edit if they didn't like the language. I quite honestly find it shocking that this is not language that we all agree on. Breaking down the whereases are things that as leaders of any community, you should be able to definitively say you agree with. And so, I'm still baffled as to why these statements are political on their own. I mean, every student must feel safe, welcome, and fully included in their school community. And when students are alienated from their school community and experience bias and discrimination, they are inherently less safe, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, hinders their ability to grow and learn. White supremacy is the upholding of white people as a superior race and systematically excluding other communities based on their ancestry, religious beliefs, and/or country of origin, including those of Jewish and Islamic heritage, from services and opportunities such as housing, education, and migration. And white supremacy has no place in our schools or in our boardroom. I find it so sad that we can't all agree on this, but that's where we are. We chose to put this on the consent calendar because I knew we didn't want to have this debate again, but it's been pulled, and so we've now had the debate again, and now I'll take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Director Bethel's opposed. Director Hyen?
I'm opposed because edits last year were not listened to.
Thank you for your feedback. Director Hyen's a no, and Director Chandragiri is a no. Thank you. Readings, there are none. Information and standard reports, Superintendent Perry.
All right, so a couple things. The summer graduation report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go. You want to do this? We'll debate it up here in front of everybody, Ashley.
Danielle, don't do that.
I'll do whatever I want. You just sat up here as
It
the
will be in
chair.
order.
and
I am the
basically-
chair.
Go ahead. Who cares? You actually act like we're a bunch of children. You don't want to debate, but you sat up here and acted as if it was a debate.
The director will be in order. We were doing
And then what?
discussion. I'm able to do my discussion.
You actually cut me off. You wouldn't let me provide discussion. I raised my hand. You skipped right over me for the vote.
That is completely my bad. I thought that you didn't want to comment. So if we want to go back and discuss, I would be more than happy to do that. I did not mean to exclude you from discussion. Oh, okay. Okay, great. Let's acknowledge you for discussion again. Director Bethel, then we'll
Thank
do
you.
Director Hyen.
Great. I just want to put on the record that while I only disagree with about the 2/3 of what you said in your little lecture to all of us adults who are also elected and representing people of this community, there are two specific reasons why I'm not going to vote to support this resolution again this year. I'd like you to listen because I listened to you. If you could give me that respect, I'd appreciate it. So in the whereas, where it says, whereas students' diverse learning needs and cultural values are integral part of the learning community, we must create systems that are inclusive and celebrate our students' learning assets. I understand that it continues, but it feels like we're just gaslighting the crap out of kids because while this was created last year, and I last year remained silent and didn't engage because I was really hopeful that we would actually take action on this, we didn't. And secondly, whereas every student must feel safe, welcome, and fully included in our school community, and I fully 100% support that regardless of my life's beliefs or theirs. And when students are alienated from their school communities and experience bias and discrimination, we're talking about all students. And I don't understand how in this last year, we have included every single student, their values and their beliefs in our buildings. We have alienated just about every student I can think of from one aspect to the next. And so while I understand the intent of this, we heard from all of our community on both sides of whatever aisle you want to look to that said these are just words on paper. And so I can't support just words on paper anymore. I want to see real action. And I appreciate that the new leadership has created opportunities for board members to try to collaborate within the community, but it really takes collaboration between the board and the district to execute that. So I don't support it because, again, it's just words on paper. Thank you.
Director Hyan.
And I agree with Director Bethel, but also, you know, racism is not okay, and neither is reverse racism. And the way this proclamation starts out with white supremacy, no, white supremacy is not okay. But when you, for 3 years, have been lied about by a particular group of students, it becomes a very hurtful word. And I asked to have it removed last year, and it wasn't, and it still isn't, and until it is, I will not vote for it.
Can I just add that?
Director Avila.
Thank you. I think, you know, the district taking and creating the book reconsideration process to uphold 2 very specific books that have been challenged. I think that is part of this commitment to the work. So it's just not words on paper. Action is being made.
Procedural question, do we need to do the vote again after going back to discussion?
There were, those who voted in favor of it did not seek reconsideration of it, which would have brought it back to you. You just have allowed additional comment after the vote.
Okay. And again, I didn't mean to cut off discussion early. I thought I apologize for that. All right. Are we ready to move then now to, we don't have readings. We're moving to 10, information, standard reports, Superintendent Perry.
Sorry, I've lost my agenda here. Okay, a couple things. One is the summer graduation report. And just to clarify, like McKay graduation, we had 12 new graduates for a total of 554, just like I clarified before. Huge shout out to our schools who didn't give up on kids when graduation day passed and kept working with them all summer long to make sure they obtained their high school diploma. And then next you have your board and committee assignments. And as a point of clarification, many of these are with the district and not, I don't happen to see them as exclusive committees separate from the district because I know on, like, for example, the Dual Language Advisory Committee, it's really district staff who's there helping report, and board members are a part of that. And when I think about the statements around assets and celebrating assets, I think our dual language program is one of those we could really come together around to think about how we value language and culture, not just for our students learning English, but also our students who want to learn Spanish. So I think we have some examples of where we're really trying to value the assets of all kids. It's hard to listen, and it's hard to really think about who would want to come work for you in this moment. So something to think about as we work on coming together as a board. You want people to come work for you, and you want people to come lead this district and lead our students and lead our community. And all of your meetings are online. And where you stand with your values, people will watch. And that, you want a really good person to sit in this chair. And so I'm not trying to be dismissive at all to you, but I just need to say that out loud as you start this process. It's super important. And we have such good staff that are working in the right direction. We spent the entire day with 170 administrators all talking about our restorative work, our new pilot schools. What does accountability look like in this new time? Because it's easy to sit back and say, restorative practice doesn't have accountability, but it does. So I just want you to pause for a minute and think about the educators who are doing really good work on behalf of our kids. And it's not perfect. It won't be perfect. We're dealing with humans and kids. Sorry, I really just meant to go through the standard reports. Finally, your board meeting schedule is in there. We have 2 virtual meetings potentially coming up in that last week, 4th Tuesday. You'll be interviewing search firms. Board leadership will review the applications or the RFP proposals and then bring to you the firms to interview. And hopefully by about Tuesday of next week, they'll know whether it will take 2 nights or not, depending on how many responses we get. So with that, I will turn it back over to you and apologize for going off agenda.
That's okay. So on the committee assignments list, we did send this out earlier this week, I believe, or no, end of last week. So if any directors feel like they aren't going to have enough time for whatever we've assigned them to, or there's any changes that need to be made, we can still trade or make some minor changes. We tried to go through and listen to what we knew people were interested in throughout the year as we made those assignments, but just reach out to me if you're like, I can't do this or I'd rather do something else. Director Hyan.
It's kind of hard when, I know what the commitment is for CBOC. I've been on it since its inception. The other committees, I don't know what the commitment is, and so it's really hard to say whether there's something I'm going to be able to do or not.
Okay, that's fair. Why don't we talk after and we can get some time set up for any director who's like, wait, what does that entail, to get more detail and see if it's for sure something you can commit to.
Yeah. And I can follow up on a couple of the new ones there.
Director Bethel?
I have a question for Superintendent Perry back on the summer graduation report. So in the past, we've had students that didn't quite make it to general graduation and for credit recovery or whatever they're doing in the summer, and then some that didn't quite make it to that final finish line by the August deadline, or maybe it was July this year. And I actually have never known the answer to this. So for those particular few, if we had any this year, what supports, if any, is the district continuing to support them into success to achieve their diploma if they can? What's that cutoff? And if that isn't possible, are you warm handing them off to other opportunities to be successful?
So the general answer, because I could get specific by schools, is they can go, I think, until August 30th, unless that deadline's changed. Most schools, if they have students that are really close, they will continue providing supports through that August 30th, so this number could still increase. Students who are far from the mark of graduation and can't complete it in a summer, they are eligible to come back for a 5th year. And especially if they're within striking distance of a diploma, we want to do that. And that you will see, that's why you see our 5th year completer rate as higher than our 4-year rate, because we have a group of kids that we continue to support by coming back in and finishing in that 5th year. Then we also have the ability to hand off to GEDs, because we have our own GED program. And then we have a strong partnership with Chemeketa around GED. Do we still lose some kids? Yes, but we try to keep them attached to us all the way through that diploma.
Can you just follow up by email and let us know what that number was of those kiddos that didn't quite get there after the August 30th date?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yep.
Director Chandra Gary?
Chair, I really want to say thank you for the committee assignment. I like all of them. I will make time, and I commit to making time. And I hope the TBD stands for to be decided. I hope we decide it, because to me the safety of our children is very important. So safety, so I look forward to sitting in that. I'll make as much time as you want.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Okay, any other hands? So we'll move to board reports. We can just go down the line, and I would just ask that we try to keep our reports to about 2 minutes, because it's really hot and everyone's tired. Student Advisor McDonald, we'll start with you. Anything to you don't have to have anything to report, but if you have anything, you can.
I'd just like to say that I've been going to school about every day just to run cross country, and it's really awesome to see the new improvements to our building and the progress that's coming along in the construction. And then also just all I can see is the athletic students who are getting out and preparing for the seasons, and just kind of people getting re-engaged with our schools.
What school is that?
West Salem High School, sorry.
Awesome. Thank you. Student Advisor Brennan.
I guess the only thing to report is that Sprague is, as of last time I went and visited Sprague is still under construction, sadly. So we have had little activity on our campus, minus the fact that we have a trail behind our campus, and we also have our baseball field open.
Thank you. Director Avila.
I'd just like to share that I've been enjoying my board chair retirement. But I did, I got to attend with some district personnel, and of course you, Chair Carson Conham, visit with the Education Department over at Grand Ron, and I'll continue those discussions, and it was lovely, and how we can incorporate their voices, their needs into all aspects of our district, from the food that we offer to the curriculum to the discipline and the behavior and the learning content. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Chandragiri.
Thank you very much, Chair. I really enjoyed attending the stakeholder engagement with early learning group, the hub, and the faith community. It was wonderful. People were amazing, well engaged, and the early learning hub, they gave some very good ideas of how that information, lots of information they have, can flow into our kindergarten, and that can lead to continuity rather than discontinuity. The second important thing is I really want to appreciate our district leaders who explained what those KPI mean. I really felt that was very important for our community to learn. Till 3rd grade, you are learning to read, and after 3rd grade, you're reading to learn, for example. So why that 3rd grade English reading is important. As an immigrant, I felt that was very nice. Somebody explained it. So I hope everybody in the community, all families know what those KPI means. It's like we can all have a cheat sheet. That way we can start making sure we understand what these benchmarks means, why attendance is important, why 3rd grade reading is important, why the 8th grade math and 9th grade on track for graduation and the graduation rate. Everything is really built on itself. So thank you very much for letting me sit there.
Would you just mind if I asked a quick question? That is the type of engagement we're going to do with parents too. Is that real engagement? Because I know you said there.
That is absolutely an example of two-way authentic engagement. Every parent should become the teacher, first teacher and co-teacher for their child, so that the parents can be ahead of the curve rather than knowing what the child learned. They can be prepared what the child is going to learn and be quizzing the child or helping the child and help the teacher. That's what I mean by authentic engagement.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. First Vice Chair Hinojos Presi.
Thank you. I did have a report. It was kind of lengthy, but I just feel like I feel compelled to say something. And that is that I would like to uplift one of our board governance policies, BG 7 our governing style. Number 1, A, focus on issues rather than personalities. B, respect decisions of the full board, even if casting a dissenting vote. C, exercise honesty in all written and interpersonal interaction, never intentionally misleading or misinforming each other. D, criticize privately, praise publicly. E, make every reasonable effort to protect the integrity and promote the positive image of the district and one another. F, never embarrass each other or the district. And I understand that there are a lot of community tensions. I mean, there's just been a lot that's been going on in our lives, and we are all individual humans, first and foremost. We all have our own lived experiences and histories, and we bring them into the room, the board, and instead of respecting them or honoring them and working from a place of trust, I feel that we've been working really from a place of distrust and divisiveness in more than just simple rhetoric. And I know that this isn't just a everyone and then me. I know that I am also a part of contributing to this dynamic that we have going on. But I just want to say that I really hope that we can take the time to reflect on where we're coming from, listen to our fellow board members about the issues and not about our own personal biases. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll use my time to present the immediate past chair, Osvaldo Avila, this gift. We wanted to thank him for his service as chair. And the reason we're doing it at this meeting is he was unable to come for the last meeting, so. Thank you. It's a lot of work, and he really dedicated a whole lot of time and passion to the role, so thank you. Okay, you got to open it now. With your name on it.
Yeah, this is very lovely. Thank you.
And Osvaldo already talked about the half a day that we spent out at Grand Ronde, which was amazing listening opportunity. So with that, I'll go to second vice chair, Guzman Ortiz. I have to think about it every time I'm saying the titles.
Guzman Ortiz are getting us fine. Congrats and thanks again, former Chair Avila. I just kind of, again, it was stated, I was at the summer graduation, and it's such a joy. I just have to say, it's such a joy. For one, it was not because it was short and sweet, but you just know that these students have really worked. Like, they've put in the extra energy, the extra time to make it across that stage, and to see their families show up, to see some of them show up with their children in hand, or pregnant and just, ready to tackle on the next phase of their life. Just so heart-filling. And that, along with the Roberts and the Alt Ed high schools, probably, my first, but definitely want to be at every single one of those in the coming years, because it just really, really shows the effort that students, that teachers all across, and that our administrators put there. So, it was just lovely. And secondly, it was beautiful to see the pictures from what's happening this summer. I had actually enrolled one of my kiddos, at least, in some summer camps before we had travel plans, or they had traveled, they left without me. But I actually got a call from school leaders, hey, your child isn't here, and we're just checking up on them. And I thought that was so lovely, just to have that call to connect and say, we noticed that they're not here, and we just want to make sure that you know that we're here, or that you call us back if plans have changed. So I just really wanted to appreciate it. Big shout out to the district for that. And por último, quiero agradecer a todas las madres y los padres que están aquí presentes por su tiempo, por acompañarnos en esta tarde, y nada más decirles que su tiempo y su voz cuenta. Así que gracias.
Director Bethel.
Thank you. So about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I had a really lovely meeting with the chair of the Siletz tribe, Chair Pigsley, and it was really about the desire that we do more collaboration in our community. And I had a conversation with Superintendent Perry that very day. And so I followed up with an email today. Alice is going to be working with the Board of Commissioners from Marion County Scheduler to invite all the board, this board, including the student advisors, if you'd like to participate in a tour of the Chemawa Indian School. There is some intention there for us, and I'm just going to publicly put it out there that I do support this as a commissioner. I support that program entirely. And they've taken some federal hits over the years. There's a consistent windfall, or downfall in funding for these boarding schools. And they have a pretty significant asset over there of activities that are available. And they'd like to kind of cross-collaborate with Salem-Keizer Public Schools and any other districts in Marion County for the athletic facilities, specifically a pool. There's a very nice pool over there that Dolores is fighting hard to keep open and available to her students, as well as our students and community members. We're working with members of the City Council of Keizer as well on access. But we're going to go on a tour and hopefully take away some learning and opportunities to collaborate, specifically also around career technical education. They have some programs that we do not offer that potentially could be offered to our students and vice versa for theirs and to our schools. So I know that Christy was very open to the conversation. She was going to look historically back because there was a relationship once upon a time between our district and them for various things. And hopefully we can really reinvigorate that and really work on the inside-outside model, which I think is really important for them and for our communities, specifically towards the mindset of what this board is asked for and inclusivity and bringing the people in our community to us and us to them. So look for that invite. I apologize, Alice, in advance because I'm sure it's going to be torture calendaring all of us, but I look forward to the opportunity of touring that facility with all of you.
Director Hyan? Nothing? Okay. All right. Did you have something? Anybody else? No? Okay.
I heard there's thunder and lightning outside.
Oh, okay. Be careful out there on your way home. All right. I will call this a meeting adjourned at 8:55. Thank you.